Hi, welcome back to the trash heap. It's me, Trash Puppy. If you don't know where you are right now, well, this is my trash heap. This is where we talk about coding and tech and my transition into it. So today I'm coming at you with part 2 on my little mini series about the Odin Project weather app. If you saw part 1, good for you. If not, you should probably go watch that, or some of this is not going to make sense. All right, so what was part 1 about? It was the weather app, top weather app. This one's going to be about TwitchBot, which, if you don't know already, is my Twitch chatbot that I'm coding. And the reason these two are related is because I was working on the Odin Project weather app right when I hit 1,000 followers on Twitch, and that's when I promised everyone I would do a TwitchBot. And secretly, it's kind of a passion project. Like, I wanted to code one already, but 1,000 followers seemed like the right time to do it. So there are a lot of reasons why these two coincided for me at like the perfect time. The first, which you will probably know if you watch part 1, is that TrashBot's been teaching me about API and asynchronous code better than the Odin Project weather app. Also, it's happening right at the time that I'm deciding to pivot away from the Odin Project, and we will get into that. But first, let's talk about TrashBot. So I'm gonna bring you over to my code over here. Oh shit. Here we are. This is TrashBot. TrashBot is coded almost exclusively in JavaScript, and it's using a library called tmi.js. So, sorry, I'm looking at my notes right now. Oh my freaking God. Like I said, it is a passion project of mine. It's something I've wanted to code since starting streaming on Twitch, and since I learned that chatbots were a thing. I'll tell you right now, the first time that TrashBot responded to viewers in the chat, I freaking lost my mind. It was the greatest moment ever. It was the most rewarding code that I've ever written, and that's why we're gonna talk about why you should maybe, if you're coding, try coding your own projects. All right, so like I said, TrashBot was a perfect segue into top, and I wanna go over why. It was sort of a happy coincidence that the 1,000 followers happened right as I was doing the weather app, because the weather app, like I said in part 1, it wasn't doing it for me. It was kind of pissing me off a little bit. So I was glad to switch over to TrashBot, my new little passion project. So first things first, I want to go over the difficult part of doing a solo project. You don't really have guidance. And yeah, I got some guidance from Chat. Chat is, always awesome and willing to help me out over at Twitch. But for the most part, you have no guidance. It's not structured like in Top. You don't have an end plan or like a little diagram of what it's supposed to look like. So you just have this idea of what you want it to do, and then it sort of materializes as you start. And the good thing / bad thing about that is, as you start coding, you realize that you need things that you didn't foresee. And that can be good because it's going to force you to grow and be uncomfortable and learn, which is always a good thing. But it also can be bad because it can get a little frustrating. So as far as how this relates back to Top, I think that when I decided to code TrashBot, I was at the perfect level of learning. I had learned enough. What I mean is I had learned enough from Top that TrashBot was not completely out of my reach. It wasn't like if I started coding a TwitchBot, I would be like, oh my friggin' God, what the fuck's happening? But it was just enough out of my reach that I've definitely had to learn and grow and be uncomfortable. And that's, like I said, always a good thing. So let's talk about the weather app and API first, and why TrashBot has taught me about APIs and asynchronous code better than the weather app. Okay, so the very first thing I learned with TrashBot was OAuth 2, because if you want to make a Twitch bot, you have to go to Twitch and go through their documentation about how to talk to their API and get access to certain things. So the first thing I had to learn was OAuth 2. And OAuth 2, this is DigitalOcean, by the way. I just wanted to bring this up so we could talk about it a little bit. OAuth 2 is essentially an authorization framework that allows a client or application like me coding TrashBot to authorize or to ask a service like Twitch for authorization to get data from a user. So if that doesn't make sense, let me go over it using TrashBot as my example. So in the case of OAuth 2 with the Twitch API, I would be the client, my application would be the client, and TrashBot would be the user. TrashBot is the user whose resources I want. So I had to make TrashBot an account, obviously, and I had to send an authorization request to TrashBot, who then had to authorize it. So if you guys have ever been on Twitch or literally any service where you got like a pop-up that said, hey, are you okay with, connecting these services? And you said yes, you were granting authorization to an application or a client. They're the same thing. So the way that Twitch puts it is that when TrashBot authorized me to use their resources, she essentially gave me a user access token. So she gives me a user access token. I then take that token and I ask the authorization server over at Twitch, hey, I would like access to the resources of this user, of TrashBot, the user. And the authorization service says, okay, well, let me see your token. You show them the access token, the user access token, and they say, okay, yeah, I'll authenticate you, and I'm gonna give you this access token back. And this is the app access token. That's at least how Twitch words it. This is the app access token. So once the server gave me my app access token, I then built an HTTP request, which is a whole asynchronous situation that we can go over, put my app access token into the fetch URL, and asked the Twitch server for the resources that I want to use related to TrashBot. And this is actually happening the entire time my code is running and TrashBot is talking in stream. So you have to go through this whole part first to get to this sort of cyclic area where this is happening constantly with your access token. So that was a lot for me when I started, especially because one of the first things that sort of was a big hurdle was that there was a lot of people in the Twitch chat who had already done this sort of thing, and they were like, hey, why are you doing it through Twitch's documentation, how they tell you, when you could just get a token over here at this shady website and the token lasts forever? And so I didn't mention the token you get back, the app access token you get back from Twitch, times out after like 4 or 5 hours. So that's kind of a burden, right? Every 4 or 5 hours, you have to get a new token. So that's why people were like, hey, you should just go get it from this resource. They give out tokens that last forever. And I was kind of like, well, hang on a second. I've just learned about API. I know it's a security risk. These tokens that you guys are talking about, are they from Twitch? Where are they coming from? How do they last forever? Where are they coming from? So me being new to this and being like, kind of nervous, I was like, that doesn't sound right. I don't want to do that. I'm going to do it the hard way. So your girl did it the hard way. And by that, I mean, we go over to TrashBot. I'll show you. This is where, well, it's a mock version of where I hide all of my API environment variables, the ones that need to be secret, right? So you get your app access token. It's called an OAuth token. You have your client ID, your client secret. You also get a refresh token that helps you refresh whenever the OAuth token runs out every 4 or 5 hours. And then you also can put stuff about the bot in here. Anyway, so I had all of this. I have to automate this HTTP OAuth process every time TrashBot is running, right? Because it runs out every 4 hours. So I have this entire module called API.js, and all it does is handle the refreshing the OAuth token. It's not completely automated yet because I still am trying to figure out the part where it runs out every 4 hours, but I'll show you kind of how it works right now. If I were to ask TrashBot to run, you will see a bunch of stuff show up, right? So it crashes because I still have to automate one part of it I haven't gotten to yet. But if I run it again after that, basically what she did the first time she ran is she went and got me a new token because it was not, the one I had was expired. And that's where you see all this crap. I have a bunch of strings telling me what's going on, and it crashes. But before it crashes, she got the new OAuth token for me. So if I run it again, you can see that she's running right now because the OAuth token is refreshed. So I haven't completely figured out the automation, but I have automated a large part of it, a large, very annoying part of it when you have to do it manually. So that's what all of this is. And it is all API asynchronous coding. So it's using the fetch, it's crafting a URL just like with the weather app. However, this time around, it's more in-depth and harder than in the weather app because I had to go figure out HTTP requests. I had to figure out all this client ID, client secret stuff, like get all this stuff from Twitch and automate it so that the bot keeps running. So it's been awesome. It was hard. I definitely did it the hard way, but this is the safe way. And I learned a lot more doing it this way. So I'm not going to go into HTTP post because it's kind of a lot, but it's essentially just HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, is a protocol that you can use as a client to talk to a server and request stuff from it. So that's all it is. And it's using fetch, just like we talked about. So just really quickly, some other stuff that I learned from doing this. If you look at this, you can see this update JSON thing? I learned about JSON. I had to learn about JSON. So JSON essentially is a file type that holds text content, and it's formatted to work really well with JavaScript. So if you look at, let me open a JSON that we can look at. We can do the prompt queue. See this? Looks like trash right now, right? If you format it, it's just a massive array of little objects. And that's what JSON is. So if you have JSON that's holding data for you, you import it as, if you're using imports, you import it as itself. It's essentially just an object. And then in here, once I get the response from the server with the new OAuth token and when it's going to expire and all that, I essentially just take that JSON object, I change some values on it in the code, and then we have to do this file system thing. So when I first did this, I thought, if I import a JSON object and I change some stuff on it, it's going to persist. Turns out that it doesn't persist. So it just, you can change that stuff. It'll work during runtime. But if your code crashes, you'll find that your JSON actually didn't change at all from when you started it. And that was news to me. So fortunately, somebody pointed me in the right direction to Node file system, which is a whole other dependency that's been teaching me about asynchronous coding. So with this, you do the same thing. You get the JSON object that you imported, you change some stuff, but then you stringify it. You turn that object into a massive string. You use file system to open the target file, which is the file you imported the data from. So API.json is my example here. And file system will write your new data. So we change the object here, right? It will write that new object into the file system, but it will overwrite everything. So it's not that you pick and choose little things that you want to change. Like I only changed 3 things here out of that whole object that you see over here. It's going to overwrite everything. So you essentially get the object, change some things in the object, and then use the entire object to rewrite everything in the JSON. So that was also fun to learn about, and nothing that I've come across yet in Top. So yeah, that's how my OAuth works. I have all my environment variables in this API.json right here. You're not going to see it because obviously, but this is essentially what it looks like. So a lot about asynchronous coding, a lot about API. As far as the weather app is concerned, this has been way better for me. I have learned so much more. And Top will likely go back over API stuff. I'm not saying that they're not going to cover that. I'm just saying for me, this worked better to learn this stuff. So one more bonus thing that I've learned from Trashbot is this is the first project that I've coded that someone could actually download and want to use. They could, you know, they could technically download anything from my GitHub and try to use it, but this one really is the first project that has the highest chance of that actually happening. So I've had to start thinking about open source. And I don't know if that's like the right term here, but open source as far as if someone wanted to use Trashbot, you know, I have to configure it so that they can easily use it. So if you look at, this is the main Trashbot.js. The first thing that happens is this check for file system. And then the next thing that happens is what we just went over, the OAuth status. So check for file system happens first. And that's because in the case that somebody downloads Trashbot and they want to use it, as it is in GitHub, it doesn't have all of the JSON files that the code needs to run. So if we go look at filecheck.js, which is where this function is imported from, I can show you the types of files that need to be created, right? So because I'm ignoring a lot of the files, they're in my git ignore, right? I'm not going to send up api.json. I'm not going to send up quotes database.json. If someone were to download Trashbot and try to run it just as is, well, if I didn't have the file check thing there, it would crash because they don't have these files, right? So all the file check does is create the files for them. So the first one is check for API, right? They need the api.json file to work. So if api.json does not exist in the current directory that Trashbot is running from, file system is going to essentially create it for them. It's going to be empty. It's not going to have all the values that it needs. That's kind of why I have mock API right here, so that they can format it exactly how it needs to be for the code to use it. But it'll create it for them. There's two other JSON files that I have running right now. They're essentially databases, and that's prompt queue and quotes database. So for an example, with Twitch, with my Trashbot, if somebody says something iconic in chat, I have coded Trashbot so that she can save the quote in a database, this JSON file, quotes database.json. It'll include the quote, the author, the time, etc. It'll save that quote and put it in the database, and then you can ask Trashbot for quotes. So if you want to quote somebody specific, a specific viewer, you just ask her. She'll go into the database and bring it up. So that's another file that needs to be created. I'm not sharing it up to GitHub because it has people's usernames, blah, blah, blah. So if they want to use Trashbot, it'll create that file for them. Even though it's empty, at least it's there. And then the other one is a similar thing, prompt queue. So yeah, I've had to start thinking about open source. And that's been kind of fun because it's weird to think about, hey, if someone else has to use my code, like I can't just code whatever I want in here. This has to make sense. It has to work wherever it's downloaded. And I'm not saying that I'm good at it. I'm not saying if you go download Trashbot, it's gonna work. It's probably not, but it's helping me start to think about that. So other things real quick that I've learned from Trashbot, I've learned how to use Docker. I still have to implement it, but I've learned everything that I need to implement Docker to try and make her more secure. Because Docker essentially it's not a virtual machine, but it is a virtual computer environment that is separate. It's happening in your computer, but it separates itself from your computer. So it makes it more secure. Like if somebody wanted to somehow exploit TrashBot and she's running on my computer, it's containerized to try and keep it safe. So I'm learning Docker. I'm learning SQLite because, you know, a JSON file is not the best way to have a database. It's working for now, but we're gonna have to upgrade. So I'm learning SQLite. And just in general, TrashBot has been an excellent way for me to learn things. And I really suggest that if you're learning to code, obviously it's fine to be going through Top, it's fine to be going through other resources like that, but try your hand at a passion project and see what you learn. You might really enjoy it. All right, so to close out, I wanted to talk to you guys about why did I stop doing Top, because I didn't go over it last time, and that's my bad. You know, when I sit down and do these videos, I don't like to do a lot of editing. I don't like to do the like jump cutting when I say and stuff. So I try to sit down and say everything I need to say in one go. And if it works out, it works out. But sometimes, you know, I'm a human, I forget stuff. So I didn't actually go over it last time. So we're gonna do that right now. The reason I stopped Top was not because of Top. It was not because of the content. It was not because of the weather app, even though the weather app was kind of frustrating for me. That's not at all what happened. Basically what's happened is now that I've been learning more and more about coding and tech and trying my hand in different sectors of tech and learning from the community, especially on Twitch and on Discord, I've learned that I can code in cybersecurity. So you guys didn't know this, but when I started this journey, I actually really wanted to do cybersecurity. But the biggest thing that stopped me, which is super naive, I now realize, is that I didn't think I could code in cybersecurity. But it turns out that I can code in cybersecurity. So I'm kind of pivoting into that. And that's why I've stopped doing Top. It has nothing to do with Top. Top is awesome. If you're doing Top, keep doing it. I'm still myself going to be using some of their resources. They have a whole thing on Node.js I want to go through. I need to go through all the data structure stuff. I want to go through their career stuff. So please don't think that it's because of the Odin Project. The weather app did bother me. But other than that, I think it's been awesome. And I will still be recommending it to people, especially people who are brand new to coding. I think it's a great reference for people who don't know shit about coding like me. So yeah, I want to switch into cybersec. That's what I'm going to be doing mostly on stream and in my journey. I'm still going to be coding. That was the other big lesson I realized, is that I can code projects on my own. You know, like I don't have to be trying to go for a career in coding. If I want to code something, I can. I don't know why it was such an epiphany for me, but it was. So I'm still going to be coding stuff, that's for sure. I do a lot of code wars. I do, after this TrashBot project, I have some other projects I want to do. So yeah, I'm still going to be using Top resources. It has nothing to do with Top. It just has to do with me wanting to switch into cybersecurity because that's what I had wanted to be doing. And I'm super excited that I can code in cybersecurity. All right, so that's basically everything. I just have some closing thoughts for you guys. I hope that this part 2 answered some questions. I hope more that it motivated any of you to start your own projects, your own coding projects. I will say I've learned a lot. Now, obviously, you want to try to start a project that you think you can handle, but at the same time, expect to be overwhelmed, expect to not know some things, and expect that you're not going to be able to foresee everything you're going to need to learn for your project. And that's how it is. And it's a beautiful thing. It's all about growing and being uncomfortable and learning better that way. So as far as future YouTube content is concerned, I'm still going to be making videos. I actually have some plans. I want to do a video on Code Wars next, I think. So I'll be working on that. Maybe I'll do some cybersecurity stuff. Maybe we'll get a video on TrashBot or other future projects. If you guys want something specific, let me know. Because yeah, now I don't have the Top really. I won't really be doing that. So I want to hear what you guys want to see from me. And then obviously I'm still streaming on Twitch all the time. I have a Discord. I know in the comments I hear a lot of people talking about, you know, they want to be part of the community and stuff like that. Definitely come to the Discord. There's lots of people there. There's lots of techies, coders, cybersecurity people, all there who are willing to help and hang out and just, you know, chill and code and stuff. It's awesome. So thank you again for stopping by and hanging out with me. I appreciate all of the comments and feedback I get from you guys. And I love especially hearing your stories about how you've gotten into coding or are gonna get into coding or have been coding. I love hearing all that stuff. And I also love answering your questions. I know a lot of the time I can't answer them. You know, I don't know everything, but pointing people into the directions that helped me out, I have no problem with that. So I'll see you all for the next video. I don't know when it'll be here. I'm not gonna promise anything, but I will see you then. Until then, I hope to see you around in the Discord and on Twitch and on Twitter. Anywhere where you feel like you want to be part of the trash heap, you are welcome. You are welcome there. And I hope you come and stop by and say hello. All right, everybody. Thank you. I'll talk to you later.